Welcome to the X's and Argos Scouting Report brought to you by Funny Bone Broth. My name is Ben Grant. So the Argos have the Ottawa REDBLACKS this week, and joining me to help preview the game is REDBLACKS play-by-play voice, TSN 1200's AJ Jakubec. AJ, thanks so much for being here to talk some CFL football.
My pleasure. Always happy to do it.
So the REDBLACKS, they're coming off a big win last week. It's a bit rich, but Argos fans are somewhat skeptical given what's gone on the last couple seasons in Ottawa. So is this team for real, or is it just a team that's very good at beating the Elks?
Well, we're going to find out on Wednesday because I'm kind of wondering the same thing. Look, I think I've made the analogy that, you know, if you're a team, and I think it's probably even stronger in football because the quarterback position is just so important. I view it as the most important in all of sports. You can argue that in hockey that, you know, the starting goaltender, you might have a team that is okay, but if they don't have a starting goaltender that's any good, and we saw that last year, for example, with the Ottawa Senators, the first 16 games of the year, they were 2-13-1, and they looked off. They looked like a team that didn't belong in the league, and they couldn't get a save. And all of a sudden they started getting goaltending, and they were pretty competitive the rest of the way. And I think you could say the same thing, and probably even more so when it comes to quarterback play. I mean, when you look at how the Ottawa REDBLACKS looked the first 6 weeks of the season, they looked like a team that didn't belong in the league. And all of a sudden they get competent quarterbacking, and, you know, the talent that I thought that was there around them. And do I think this is the best receiving core in the league? I don't. Do I think, you know, that their running back situation is good enough? I don't. Do I think their offensive line, I mean, is one of the best in the league? You know, you're not going to compare this offensive line, for example, with what you see in Winnipeg, but, you know, this is 8 straight games. That being said, they've been banged up so much. This is 8 straight games where someone new was coming on the O-line. This will be Chris Ferguson's CFL debut at left tackle, a global player out of the University of Cincinnati this week. So, but actually, I think the O-line's been better each and every week, and to me has been trending upwards. So, but the reality was, you know, this is a team through 6 weeks of the season that had 5 offensive touchdowns and, you know, 3 and conceded 3 on offense. So like they're barely breaking even when it came to productivity on offense. It was dreadful. And, you know, I think from a fan standpoint, the fans in Ottawa, they were tired of seeing 34-year-old Matt Nichols won hot balls, and they were tired of seeing 32-year-old Dominique Davis throw pick sixes. I mean, he threw 3 in a row in his 3 games. And so, and we saw, you know, a lot of that, you know, not one every game, obviously, but that was a problem with the 14 interceptions that he threw in 2019 as a starting quarterback. So the reality is, well, Matt Nichols has been a pretty good quarterback in the Canadian Football League. His arm just doesn't look like it's there coming after the shoulder surgery. And while Dominique Davis has shown at times flashes that he's got the potential to be that guy, I mean, we've just got a large enough sample size to realize that, you know, he's prone to too many major mistakes in key points. So to see Caleb Evans come in his first ever CFL start, and I don't know how he's going to replicate that. I mean, teams have film on him right now, so, you know, they might be able to exploit some things, but to just see the decision-making that he had and the poise and to go along with the tools, a dual threat quarterback that Ottawa's really never had. Their probably best running quarterback has been Henry Burris, who, you know, could get away from pressure if need be, but, you know, you wouldn't call him a dual threat in his early 40s. So, you know, he brings something with his legs that's a little bit different than we've seen here in REDBLACKS history, and his arm strength and accuracy in some of those passes, you know, was pretty impressive too. But the most exciting thing for me was just the decision making. And, you know, there was not one play that I could look back on and say, "Ooh, we got away with that one. That could have been an interception." You know, maybe there's a couple of throws he'd like back, and, you know, maybe there's couple of decisions where you could say, okay, maybe he could have gone in a different direction, but there was not one play where you could say, well, that could have been a turnover. So a real encouraging start. And I think the biggest thing for Ottawa REDBLACKS fans at this stage, I mean, we'll see. I mean, if they go 4-3 the rest of the way, they've got a decent chance of making the playoffs at 6-8, the way things are playing out right now. But it's about hope. Fans just want hope. And if we see more of the same from Caleb Evans and everyone else, like that was a 3-phase win: special teams, defense, offense. Everyone else plays, to a similar fashion and similar level than what we saw in the Edmonton game. At the very least, that gives this fan base hope. It gives the group of players hope going into every game. And, whether that leads to a 4-10 record or 7-7, to me, it's all about just hope for everyone involved, so that, you can start to look forward to maybe taking another big step next year.
And I think the coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for last week too. I thought it was a brilliantly called game by Paul LaPolice. I thought but he also showed a lot of faith in Caleb Evans, because like you said, it wasn't just what I was expecting, which was one read and then tuck it and go, or maybe two. He seemed to have the ability to scan the field and make decisions back there. But at the same time, I thought LaPolice was conservative in his game plan. It wasn't aggressive. They weren't firing the ball downfield. So I just thought the coaching staff handled that really well. Now, if we look at one of the biggest problems for Edmonton last week, it was they continued to kick the ball to Devontae Dedmon. And I couldn't understand for the life of me why they kept doing that. And so I imagine the Argos this week are going to do their best to keep the ball away from Dedmon. Is this something where if special teams aren't a factor, do you think that the REDBLACKS are going to be able to hang around and maybe take this game?
Yeah, well, what a test for Mark Nelson in his first game against the REDBLACKS, right? As a guy who was, there since 2014, mainly as defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. But he would have seen Devontae firsthand, for example, in that game against Montreal in 2019, where he had two kick return touchdowns in the same game, one on a kickoff and one on a punt return. So, he'll definitely be aware of how electrifying he can be. And to me, I think he might be the most electrifying player in the league. I mean, 4 touchdowns in 11 games now, and leads the league in combined yards. And he's barely even factored in on offense. He's a receiver. But, even when they had a running back go down in the Saskatchewan game, Timothy Flanders, due to injury, I mean, he looked actually better than Flanders did. And he hadn't played running back since high school. So this guy's just a guy that, I'm hoping CFL fans will get to see for a long time. I mean, for his sake, I mean, you always, it's like a guy like Deontay Spencer as well, right? You see him in the NFL and in a return role, and even getting some looks on offense now too in Denver. And you're happy to see him get that opportunity. And I wonder if he'll kind of follow in the footsteps of guys like Chris Williams and Deontay Spencer that, might get a look in the National Football League. For CFL fans, I think we from Pinball Clemens to Gizmo Williams. I mean, I grew up in Edmonton, right? So, that's one of the things that makes CFL so great. But Dedmon to me is as an electrifying player as there is right now in the Canadian Football League, and full value for being named one of the performers of the week. The one thing I'll say about Ottawa, I mean, certainly it's not just about Devontae Dedmon. I mean, it's about the entire special teams unit. And even in 2019, when the team was 3 wins, this special teams unit, really since Bob Dice came here in 2016, has consistently performed as one of the best in the league. So it's about their cover teams where, Richie Leone is killing it, well over 40 yards at every net punt. So you've got that. You've got, guys like Brendan Galanders and Nigel Romick, who have been here a long time on the cover units. You've got Lewis Ward, the most accurate kicker in the history of the CFL. Small sample size, sure, but I mean, he's just been Mr. Automatic at 92% since coming in. And now you've got an electrifying return guy in Dedmon. So that unit, has always been coached so well by Bob Dice. I think the defense, now that they got some help, they were really good the first 3 weeks. Then they got torched 2 weeks in a row by Montreal and by BC. But I think they missed Abdul Kenna and Sherrod Baltimore. Sherrod's still out probably a couple more weeks with a hamstring injury, but Kenna's back. He had a pick six in the opening win against Edmonton on the road, and this will be his second game of the season. So that'll be a boost to the secondary. And to me, Avery Williams is, one of the best linebackers in the CFL right now. I mean, he's on pace for Solomon Elamimian record numbers. I mean, we're not going to play an 18-game season, obviously, but, would have been on pace for, potentially breaking Elamimian's tackle record. So in a single season. So you've got, and I think as well, you've got a couple of guys that maybe didn't perform as well as they needed to, that were free agents to start the season. But the last couple of weeks have been really good weeks for Don Unamba and Cleon Lang as well. So I think the defense is good. I think special teams is right at the top of the league. It's about the offense, right? And if the offense is okay, then they're going to win some football games down the stretch. It just has to be okay. I thought, last week it was good. How much of that was Ottawa? How much of that was Elks? We'll find out probably a little bit more tomorrow. But it was historically bad the first 6 weeks of the season. I mean, the only win they had in week one was the only game in CFL history where a team won with less than 100 yards in that offense. And so, you're just not going to win football games that way. And if they get something out of the offense, then, the other two phases should be able to win them a lot of football games, I think.
Just watching Coach Nelson at practice this week, he's very aware of the importance of this game and the significance, and he knows exactly who's back there returning punts, returning kicks. So I think he'll probably have something in mind, some sort of game plan, because Toronto's special teams have not been great this year. Punts have been blocked on a weekly basis, and there have been all sorts of issues back there. So I think there's a lot of faith in Coach Nelson being able to pull the unit together. But that's the combination of pulling so many players from all these different teams. Special teams seem to be the thing that suffered the most in this sort of new Argos team. So for Argos fans that haven't really got a chance to see the Red Blacks this year, who's a player that they may not have heard of that has maybe made an impression on you so far this season?
Yeah, I'll say, well, I guess Caleb Evans would probably be the first guy on that list. But if they saw last week, then that's one. I mean, we know about Dedman, we know about Williams. I'll say Ryan Davis is a guy that's really impressed me as a rookie. That he was the all-time leading receiver at Auburn University, and a smaller guy in the slot that has some dynamic qualities as well. He probably would have had a touchdown, that Music City Miracle-esque type play that they had in week one against Edmonton was called back on video review. I still think the Red Blacks are mad about that decision. I think it was probably, in truth, maybe a half a yard, a forward pass before Davis ran it to the house. But was there conclusive evidence? Certainly the Red Blacks didn't think so. So we got a taste of what Ryan Davis could do then. I think he linked up quite well with Caleb Evans last week with his second CFL touchdown catch. And, I think this is a receiving group that, has taken some knocks this year, but it's actually, I thought they played quite well last week. And I think there's some positives when you bring in a veteran like Kenny Stafford. RJ Harris, to me, is a solid, steady, reliable guy. And Davis has some dynamic qualities. And a guy like Nate Bahar, who, had a great, I watched him play in college at Carleton, was a high first round pick by Edmonton. And, I don't know if he got on the wrong foot with contract right away in Edmonton, and he missed training camp, but we've never really seen him kind of look anywhere near the Nate Bahar we saw at Carleton. Well, we've seen that a little bit more this year. He's been pretty solid as well for this Red Blacks team on offense. So, those are some of the guys that you might get a look at on that side of the ball. And, on defense, a guy that's really impressed me is praised Martin Oguike out of Temple. They've had great success, this team out of Temple University. I mentioned Avery Williams. You got Avery Ellis off the edge on one side, and it's Martin Oguike on the other. Of course, the best red black in history went to Temple and Henry Burris, but Martin Oguike, he's a guy that makes plays. He's been dangerous off the edge, and a guy that has created some havoc, whether it's tackles for loss, sacks, you name it. He's been, pressures. He's been a nice find, I think. So those are some of the guys that I think to watch for. I'd say Adam Auclair, their first round pick from 2020, but unfortunately he's not going to play this game due to injury. He's a Canadian that's been playing at will linebacker that has been getting more reps on the defensive side each and every week and has not looked out of place getting those reps. So that's a guy to watch out for in the future, and certainly a guy that, especially once a guy like Antoine Pruneau finally retires after playing his 100th CFL game last year, and he still has some good football left in him for hopefully a couple more years. Red Blacks are hoping that for sure, but whenever he moves on, seems like they've got a pretty good kind of replacement as a guy that can maybe play will and safety in Adam Auclair.
And for any Ottawa fans that are watching this show for probably the first and only time this season, we've got Jack Cassar starting at middle linebacker, who's a Carleton Ravens star for the last few years. So that's someone that they may want to look out for as well. But
I broadcast Panda on the weekend, and no, I wasn't overturning cars on Russell Avenue after the fact.
What a game, though.
Well, every year. I mean, Panda never disappoints. Every year it's been good. But the exciting thing for me, every week when I fill out the depth charts and you see, okay, how many guys are from, the local schools, and, it just seems like there's more and more from both schools right now. I think the fact that Carleton actually has a program again, and it's been 8 years now. 2013 they returned, but it's been great for all of football, and I think it's boosted both schools in terms of some of the players that they're getting, because Pandas, that's one area where you can recruit because of that game, right? I mean, it was 15,000 this year, but that's one thing. If all of a sudden all schools are equal, and you can go play for Carleton or Ottawa and get a chance to play in front of 25,000, a handful of times in university, that might be the deciding factor. So yeah, it's great to see. I mean, it's great. I think U Sports all around is certainly getting better and better each year. And you're seeing more Canadians get the opportunity to play south of the border, NCAA as well. So yeah, it's great to see the strength of, the local schools, but just Canadian players in general.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, AJ, I know you've got a busy schedule. I won't keep you from it. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure. Hopefully we get a fun game tomorrow night.
I'm looking forward to it. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the X's and Argos Scouting Report. For AJ Jakubec, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.